ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between.
I don't know what this world is coming to.
When we came home, she was sitting in the hallway, but we had left her in the spare room.
Yo. Now, the real-life Annabelle doll isn't this porcelain-faced terror that we've seen in the Conjuring movies over the years. She's actually a vintage Raggedy Ann doll, and her story begins back in the 1970s when a nursing student received her as a gift. Allegedly, strange things started to happen immediately after, and the doll would appear in different positions, it would move to other rooms, and even leave eerie notes. Now, a psychic medium later claimed that the spirit of a deceased girl named Annabelle Higgins was attached to the doll, thus came the name Annabelle. Now, apparently things took a darker turn after this, and a paranormal investigating couple named Ed and Lorraine Warren concluded that the doll was actually not haunted by a child's ghost at all, but instead manipulated by a demonic entity attempting to possess a human host. The Warrens took the doll, locked her in a specially made glass case, took her to this occult museum out in Connecticut, and labeled it with a sign, "Do not touch." Now, as we all know, Americans do not like to listen, so fast forward to today, and Annabelle is currently on a road tour. That's right. Annabelle has been taken out of the original glass, apparently swapped into another glass case that has been prayed over, and they put crosses on it and everything. But yes, that doll was removed from its original glass and put into another one, and then taken out of the occult museum that it previously was in, and it is on a road tour called Devils on the Run, where she has been displayed in various U.S. cities and various paranormal displays across the United States. But when she made a stop in New Orleans, it kind of raised a bunch of eyebrows and garnered some headlines, because during her visit to the French Quarter for a private event, two very significant events happened in very close proximity.
Tonight, officials say the breakout at a New Orleans jail was an inside job, arresting jail maintenance worker Sterling Williams. They say he turned off the water to this cell, enabling 10 inmates to escape through the wall. According to the arrest affidavit, Williams told investigators one of the fugitives told him to turn off the water, threatening to shank him if he didn't comply.
I will never not laugh at a news commentator mentioning shanks or shanking people. But regardless, yes, on Friday, May 16th, you had 10 prisoners escape from the New Orleans Parish jail through a hole behind their sink. These motherfuckers is real brazen as they graffitied on the wall, "Too easy, LOL." So shouts out to these dudes. They was on bullshit to begin with, just ready to get out and do whatever it is they was planning on doing. Now, there was some surveillance footage that captured the inmates escaping from the prison facility and running across the highway. I do want to call out, for all my black people who saw that clip of them escaping, we knew that they weren't going to be free long because they split that pole. We, as the African American community, know that when you go somewhere and there is a pole, we all will pass that pole on one side, because if you split that pole, you're going to run into some bad luck. But apparently nobody warned these dudes, or they didn't corroborate. And it's actually hilarious, too, because if you watch the footage back, the great majority of the inmates in the beginning, they're all like escaping and going on the right side of the pole. But the very first dude that's on the left, that crosses the pole on the left, that motherfucker stumbles and falls. It's as if the universe is trying to warn them niggas from day one, hey, this ain't going to end up well. Now, there's a bunch of inmates, like I said, 10 of them that were that all escaped. I won't go go through all the charges, but some of these dudes got locked up for second-degree murder, some of them for armed robbery with a firearm, aggravated assault. Like, these dudes got all kinds of like records, so these ain't like good citizens who don't deserve to be in jail. Like, these dudes did some shit, and that's the reason why they were in or doing, you know, the jail time. Now, as these guys have gotten out, one by one, each one of them have been arrested and caught. The first one to be captured was actually this dude, Kendall Myers, who was caught after he went live on IG with him and his crew, letting everybody know that he is indeed fresh out.
Yeah, man, nigga know I hit a bag home, back on my boys. And I'm about to go with a 2. Get up with me. Alright. You fresh out, huh? Fresh out of jail. Stop playing.
A few moments later.
Yeah, so it wasn't too long before they were able to swoop him up. And I always try to warn the young boys, like, everything you all do, you don't have to do it on social media. I promise you, like, you gonna go live real quick, you're gonna show a quick little video. You may think that you got your location turned off on your phone or something like that. They have hacked into all of our devices, and they can get to the metadata any which way that they want to. They will find you. Oh, man. So next up to get captured was Robert Moody. Apparently, Robert Moody was captured on the 3500 block of 2nd Street at 7:32 p.m. thanks to a tip. Because, again, as you all should be aware of, I don't care if you live in the suburbs. I don't care if you stay in the hood. If there is a warrant out for your arrest and some type of monetary value to collecting you, I promise you someone will snitch on you. Plain and simple. Now, the third to get captured was DeKeenan Dennis, who was apprehended near Chef Montour Highway in Dell Street. His picture, because like literally every single time, like these cops was proud. Every single time they would catch one of these dudes, they would pose in pictures, like, you know, when you see the pictures of someone like that went out fishing and they catch a big bass and they, you know, they surround the bass that they caught and they hold it up and they just proud in the picture. That's what every single one of these cops look like in every one of these photos where they're capturing these guys. So DeKeenan wasn't too proud of himself. He got his head down trying to look away from the camera, but Big Fish Gaming, these dudes is happy. They didn't caught they catch for the day. Now, the fourth inmate to get captured was Gary Price, and Gary Price was actually caught sleeping on a bench when he got detained.
Look at this man. But you all right? Straight.
Man. Next up, 19-year-old Corey Boyd was the fifth inmate to be captured. He was found Tuesday inside a residence in the 1400 block of Iberville Street. I'm not too familiar with the area, and I'm sorry I didn't do the additional Googles of throwing in addresses to see how close these places are to the prison, but I have a sinking suspicion that none of these dudes got that far away from the prison, which I don't 100% understand. Like, you know, on one side of it, you just broke out of jail and, you know, you don't really have transportation or money to really travel too far. But like, it just seems like a lot of these dudes didn't make it too far or went to hang out with their homies. Like, it seems like they escaped and they didn't quite have a plan of what to do once they got outside of them gates. I don't know. I think that's like one of the things, if you plan on breaking out of jail, you should at least have like a destination that you're trying to get to. But I don't know. That's just me. Now, the next person to get arrested actually was the Sterling Williams, who was the employee at the New Orleans Parish jail. He was arrested as they felt that he helped the 10 inmates escape from the jail. Investigators say that he was asked by inmates to, turn off the water in the cell, which he gladly did.
Inmates also tried to take Williams's phone, according to the document.
He intended to assist these individuals to leave that facility.
The sheriff's office says a total of 3 jail employees are on leave without pay. The police chief today with this message for anyone who aids the escapees.
If they participate willfully and knowingly, they are going to be charged with serious felonies.
Now, it shouldn't be funny, but at this point in the story, people online started taking bets to see who would get caught next. Somebody had tweeted out down to the final sets, let's get it. He posted his odds of who his favorites were to get caught next. Somebody responded to that comment saying that they'll put $100 on Boyd. They were going to parlay Tate and Donald at plus 1020 and put $50 to win $560. Somebody else added saying that Derek looks like he's going out like Tay-Tay from Set It Off. Somebody else chimed in and said, my money is on Derek. He looked like he writes his thoughts down. Somebody else chimed in saying that Macy not getting caught. He gonna go out with a bang. Somebody else felt that Linton is not a priority. They getting the top guys first. Like, it got super crazy. And of course, it's always one of those things where it's all in fun. But then, of course, Poly Market then actually put together a betting site to allow people to make money, which I'm going to call racism, because as some of you may remember, there was a whole bit of controversy leading up to the election where for a great majority of time when Kamala was running up against Donald Trump, Kamala was in the runnings to win. And then Poly Market explicitly, like 24 to 48 hours before the election, was the first company to do a massive switch and then say that Donald Trump was going to win. And then he ended up winning fairly close to the margins that they had set up through their website, which caused a whole bunch of controversy of like, did they get some information from Elon? Who knows? But yeah, prisoner parlays.
The sheriff who oversees the jail has been under fire for the response. Today, she apologized.
I take full accountability for this failure.
According to the jail's timeline, guards didn't notice the inmates were missing for more than 7 hours after their escape. The public wasn't notified for more than 10 hours.
Look, if this jailbreak happened at 1, the public should have known at 1:05. The public is your best friend.
New Orleans District Attorney Jason Williams prosecuted the convicted killer now on the loose. He says the sheriff's response puts the public at risk.
Every single day that these men are at large, the public is in danger.
So, as of this recording, 5 of those men are still at large, and honestly, 4 of them do have second-degree murder charges against them. So, as I mentioned earlier, yes, this is all fun and games with parlays and bets and just watching the madness of them feeling this is too easy and breaking out through a fucking toilet after threatening to shank their prison guard. But at the end of the day, these are dangerous men, and hopefully they will get captured before anything happens to any innocent civilians. But I still have to ask the question, did Annabelle have something to do with this?
We are beyond terrified. We don't know what's going on or what to do. Can you help us?
Now, something that Annabelle may have also possibly helped with was the burning of Nottoway Plantation. Now, for those of you who had never heard of this plantation before it burned down, it's probably because it was more famously recently known as Nottoway Resort. Now, this historic plantation house is located near White Castle, Louisiana, and it is 53,000 square feet, and it was the largest surviving antebellum plantation house in the southern United States. Now, which should not be shocking in pure American fashion, there was a split reaction to this news. While African Americans rejoiced as this fucking slave house finally burned down to the ground, you unfortunately had members of the Caucasian community find it upsetting. Because if it's one thing we know in America, a black man's pain is a white man's vacation house.
Nottoway Plantation marketed itself as a luxury resort. On their website, they bragged that it was a gorgeous resort getaway with these beautiful trees, this, that, and the other. And then you go back and you find that video of, you know, the tours that they were giving. They were bragging that their slaves were treated very well and that descendants of the enslaved still worked at the Nottoway Resort. Look at the location tag. It doesn't say Nottoway Plantation. It says resort. Let's look at the differences in how history is portrayed by, say, the Whitney Plantation, which I've discussed at length, that focuses on the experience of black people, enslaved black people, forced here and tortured here under chattel slavery, which is not the same thing as other ancient forms of slavery, no matter how bad people want to tell you that. It is very, very different. And there are people who benefit from you thinking that it wasn't that bad. Okay? Alexis, me, you can't tell, I am directly 6 generations removed from slavery. Okay? My grandfather's father's, like, it goes directly back. And I'm a white girl. Do you understand? Do you understand what happens when you don't know your history? Do you understand? And then there's people that are like, well, how are you not mad about the history? No, don't fucking play that bullshit with me, because you don't give a fuck about real history. Because if you did, you'd say, Alexis, I understand that you're a Louisiana archivist and historian, that you've made your whole entire life preserving our history. Can you help me learn a little more about it? Oh no? Oh no, you don't want that? Oh no, you love that books are being banned? Then you don't give a shit about history. I don't care. Alexis, I'd love to debate with you. No. The fuck? I have my degrees. I ain't doing shit. I will give you 16 different books you can look at right now. You don't want that? I got scholarly articles. You don't want that? I got primary sources. You don't want that? Then I don't give a fuck. Because you don't care. Not gonna waste my time or my energy. I am talking to the people who give a fuck and would like to know something. So if you don't care, fucking goodbye. Get a job.
Kudos to that woman. I couldn't have said it any better than that. It is odd, the mental gymnastics that we go through in America when it comes to our history and when it comes to slavery and when it comes to racism and just how we got to where we are at as a country. And it's hard to wrap your brain around, especially being African American. It's hard to wrap your brain around how you could have 400 plus years of slavery and you could have these plantations and all this horrible shit that happened for centuries at these places, and for them to then be turned into resorts where people go and treat as an Airbnb and take nice, fancy, wedding pictures in front of. Like, it's maddening. I remember having a conversation with this white dude that I used to work with back in the day, and I want to say this was around when the George Floyd situation happened and when there was all that civil unrest that was happening with all the Black Lives Matter protests and just police brutality and just everything that was going on around that time period. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I want to say it was based around the whole Confederate statues and, getting those taken down. And he was on the other side of it, of that, hey, yeah, I do understand slavery and that was a bad thing, but, these Confederate soldiers and generals and all that, they were, part of American history and, we should continue to honor them, so on and so forth. And I had the conversation with him about going back to Germany after World War II, after the Third Reich got dismantled and after Hitler lost. Germany did a bunch of things to attempt to make sure that Nazi propaganda could not be passed around within its country anymore, to try to make sure that they didn't repeat history again and an atrocity like the fucking Holocaust didn't happen again. And I had explained to him how, and of course, as we see nowadays, you know, Nazis are, you know, running wild throughout the world again. And I would argue that Operation Paperclip really helped keep the Nazi, you know, thought process alive in America, and, you know, infiltrated other countries. But, you know, we talked about that on the last podcast. We'll probably talk about it again later on throughout this podcast series. But it's just amazing how Germany did do what they could to try to stop it. And then in America, you had slavery ended, and then you had the KKK rise to power, and then you had the KKK, this domestic terrorist group, protected under the First Amendment. And that is the challenge that we have in America, is that instead of facing these atrocities and trying to do better and try to improve upon it and try to make sure that it doesn't happen again, America keeps brushing the shit under the rug. And that is exactly what the Trump administration is doing nowadays with banning books. There was literally a story that I saw where in Oklahoma, they just passed a bill where they are going to start teaching their students that the 2020 election was stolen from Donald Trump. We're repeating the same cycle over and over and over again. And for those who are on the other side of America who can't see this, you have to be dumb, deaf, or blind, or just downright evil.
Hey, babe, the plantation we were supposed to get married at burned down. Now where do they expect us to get married? Fucking Auschwitz? I don't have the money for a plane ticket. All right, babe, well, what about, like, finding a spot on the Trail of Tears? I feel like that'd be a good place to get married. Baby, that is such a good idea. You know, there's a reason I fell in love with you, but I was thinking personally, we should go to, like, you know, where they did the internment camps for Japanese people during World War II. I don't know. I feel like we could just, like, you know, create a really nice vibe.
Now, you may be thinking to yourself that I've lost the plot, and like we've gotten so far away from the original conversation, Annabelle, and how does this all tie together? A doll on a world tour, and these men breaking out of prison, and these plantations burning. Like, how at all possible could all these things be connected? And with that, I would like to take you back to a conversation we just had last week about us declaring on TikTok that gingers are black people. And maybe it's not quite a coincidence that all these things happen around the same time that declaration got made on social media.
Guys, there is a synchronicity right now that I cannot ignore. Like, why is it that today the largest antebellum plantation went up in flames spontaneously the same week that the black community, or at least parts of the black community, decided to adopt gingers, or people of Irish descent? Guys, are our ancestors working together right now? Because I don't know if you guys know about Brigid. This is the Celtic pagan goddess Brigid. She's the goddess of fertility, love, healing, protection, fire. You tell me, what do you think?
So the doll was never possessed?
No, it was used as a conduit. It was moved around to give the impression of possession. Demonic spirits don't possess things. They possess people. It wanted to get inside of you.
So yeah, I won't claim to know nothing about nothing, but one thing I do know is we should probably keep an eye on this tour and just notate if anything weird happens in any of these cities that Annabelle takes a visit to. Coming up on June 20th, Annabelle will be making a stop in Chicago, Illinois. As we all know, Chicago has a very rich history of crime, going all the way back to the days of Al Capone, and it has the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre. There's, a lot of current crime going on in Chicago also, so we shall see what happens leading up to that date. Also coming up on June 11th, Annabelle will be making a stop in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and Gettysburg is a very famous city dating back to the Civil War era. It has been discussed that Gettysburg is haunted by the spirits of orphan children and a lot of other things. So we shall see if anything comes of that. But again, I just find it interesting that we as the African American community adopted the ginger community. And as we came together, Annabelle went on a world tour. And there seems to be a lot of correlations with Annabelle and her ginger hair stopping in places that are attached to African American history. I guess more to come. Be safe out there.
All right, y'all, we better be quick, bro. Y'all go grab the motherfucking, Hey, I think he's still here. Oh, shit. I thought he'd be at work. Hey, check real quick. He awake? Nah, he sleep. Should we get out of here or? Nah, that nigga sleep. But, hey, I ain't gonna lie. That man kind of... Oh. Yeah, that boy kind of thick. Why y'all ain't tell me he had a BBL? Y'all know I like that. What? Damn, this boy kind of caked up. Oh, my God. All right, big bro. All right, bro.
Yeah, I was about to say,
I ain't, bro. Y'all getting weird, bro. Boy, you better shut your ass up before I make you a munch.
Oh, what?
You heard me, nigga. Y'all better let me do what I want to do for this turn into a Diddy party. Word is bond. All right, bro. You got it, bro.
Oh, my God.
I ain't even trying to fight, bro.
That man a booty demon.
You want to be out here being a booty snatcher? That's on you. Yeah, that's what I thought. I can't support it, but I can't stop it. So, type shit.
You gonna let him do that to that man booty?
Yeah, I'm about to debo this man. Jamal, what up, boss? Go grab the honey butter.
Inside.
Foreclose that Tristan Long.
I'm wet. I'm dirty. Oh my, stuff all over the place, and here comes Brunson again.
Bold 3 detergent plus fabric softener.
What is your hottest political take?
That trans people are a sign that God is real, because in the Bible, if we're saying that the body is only a vessel, then trans people are our everyday reminder that the body is a vessel and that there is a greater world and universe spiritually out there that is bigger than our social concepts and norms that pretty much keeps us in prison.
That is a very powerful statement. And for those who are anti-trans, I would just really ask you to sit and marinate on that concept. We say all the time that, the human body is just a vessel, and what truly matters is our soul and our consciousness, inside. But then in the same breath, you all attempt to prosecute these people because you don't like how they present themselves, which, again, all of this stuff is based off of social constructs. So I just really want y'all to sit with that and think about that and just ponder on that powerful statement that person just made. Another thing that was actually interesting in transgender news is actually on May 17th, there was a group of transgender women who staged a topless demonstration in front of the Scottish Parliament. Now, this protest was in direct response to a recent UK Supreme Court ruling that defined sets strictly based on biological criteria, effectively excluding trans women from certain legal protections under the Equality Act of 2010. Now, the protesters' decision to go topless was both symbolic and strategic because in the UK, public toplessness laws actually differ between men and women. So by these trans women appearing topless, it challenges the legal system because if you arrest them, you are acknowledging them as women, which is highlighting the contradictions within that law. I talked about some of the contradictions that are popping up in a bunch of these laws that these conservative groups are attempting to pass across the world. And it opens up a variety of of issues, because a lot of this stuff isn't as simple as, you know, what your biological makeup is. You know, I spoke about intersex people on a recent podcast, and like how do we label them? You know, if they were born with both genitalia, or if they were born with unrecognizable genitalia, or some variation of their genitalia and their chromosomes, like what box do you put them in? Then, as we've talked about a bunch of different times with the bathroom bills, what do you do with that? You know, you have the whole situation where you could have someone who was assigned male at birth, they grow up and transition into a trans woman, and then you're uncomfortable with them being in the women's restroom. So then you ask them to be in the men's restroom. But then in the same breath, you have individuals who were born and assigned female at birth that then grow up and transition into trans men, and by your same definition, then they should be in the women's restroom, right? But then you're uncomfortable with that because they look like men, they look masculine. So then what do you do with them? And then furthermore, it brings up a bunch of the tragic shit that ends up happening. I talked about recently the mass presenting lesbian who went into a women's restroom. Security guard ran in there after her and was beating on the stall to try to bring her out, because they felt that it was a trans person, and this person, you know, got harassed. Then recently, unfortunately, there was a young lady who's also a masculine cisgender lesbian who was getting ready to go into the women's restroom at a McDonald's, if I'm not mistaken. And there were two gentlemen outside who, same thing, felt that they were transgender and trying to go into the women's restroom. And they decided to, quote unquote, take the law into their own hands, and they violently attacked and beat up this woman and knocked her unconscious and, you know, put her in the hospital. And it was all because they made an assumption that this was a trans person. And that is the reason why we've said it 1,000 times before, and we're going to say it 1,000 times, you know, again, until you all realize this and understand this. Trans rights are human rights. And it's always, it's the situation of right now. It's like, oh, hey, you know, this comes down to trans people, and this is what we're trying to do, and we're trying to protect the children. But honestly, what this is actually going to end up doing, and has been doing, is this is actually putting a lot of women in harm, because now what we're starting to see with security guards and with these idiotic fucking men, they are harassing and attacking women that they don't find attractive, or that they find to be too masculine, because they want to identify them with this transgender boogeyman that the media has told you is out, you know, sneaking into the restrooms to try to get your kids. And now cisgender women are being affected. So once again, trans rights are human rights. And if you continue to allow this shit to happen with them, continue to see what is going to happen to the rest of us in this society, because they are testing things out on the transgender community, because they make up shit less than 2% of the population, and they're going to test some stuff with them. And as soon as they can figure out these plans of how they can control and manipulate and attack this vulnerable community, they're just going to then broaden their horizons and attack the rest of us. They're using transgender people as guinea pigs, and I need you all to wake up so we can fight together and fight for the rights of all Americans.
It's an experiment. Mm-hmm. The brain-dead pregnant black woman in Georgia is an experiment. They are experimenting on her a la Henrietta Lacks. Okay, they are wanting to see if they can incubate babies via women who are unconscious or brain dead. If they can use us as human incubators. And they're using a black woman to do it first. Hope this helps.
You think that a brain dead person just isn't conscious anymore and their body's all working and so their body's just gonna grow the baby either way. That's not what's happening. It is not pro-life to force a child to be born of a corpse. It is not pro-life to force a child to be born of a corpse. And what are the medical implications of a fetus gestating in the chemical environment of a corpse, of a brain dead person who has to be on medication to regulate every single bodily function because their brain cannot do it, because they are dead. You can't even eat lunch meat when you are pregnant. But you think it's pro-life to force a brain dead person, a corpse, to be medically kept some semblance of alive, to force the birth of a 9-week-old fetus? If that's something that you can justify, we have very different interpretations of what is sacred. What does it mean for us as a society that we are attempting to do this for a political stunt? To force a child to be born of a corpse. If this fetus makes it to term and a child is born, that child will live with the public political theater of keeping their dead mother on life support so that they could be born of a corpse, following them for the rest of their life. That's not pro-life. That's not compassionate. It's not Christian. It's not healthy. It's disgusting. It's desecration of a corpse. It's horrific. It's, by the same logic used to oppose abortion, playing God. It is not pro-life to force a child to be born of a corpse. And
you know, it's funny, the same God-fearing anti-science crowd sure is pretty fucking comfortable intervening in God's plan and relying on science to keep a deceased woman's body alive to function as a human incubator. Make it make fucking sense.
You know, honestly, it's not very often that I am at a loss of words, but that is one story that I am literally at a loss of words. I do not understand how the pro-life party could pretend this is pro-life in any fucking way. It is disgusting. It is a abomination. And quite frankly, all of y'all who are involved in it and all of y'all who support this, you all are not the Christians, the loving, compassionate people that you all think that you are. Quite frankly, you all are some type of devil worshipers. And I mean that wholeheartedly. Like, I'm at a loss. So, for the first time, I think we're going to go ahead and take a quick little music break on this podcast, and shouts out to this up and coming artist that I stumbled across on TikTok after Doechii responded to one of their videos, and I would like to play this record called Prison by Damage featuring Gaio the Arsonist. Bang.
Every single homosexual in our country should be sentenced with death. They should be lined up against the wall and shot in the back of the head.
Tell me what you know about the mental prison. Locked up so tight I got dementors in it. Life sentencing. The government want to meddle in my mental business. People feel the need to preach God when they settle in the devil's business.
That's what God teaches.
Maybe if you did a little introspection, you want to join in on the insurrection led by a little girl with the biggest death wish. I've been calling out for help. Did you get my message? Did you get my text, bitch? Greg, I've been killing little kids just because they live in Texas. Tell a bigot they could get to step and give a fuck about the sovereignty of a nation that don't give respect to the people like me and go and give them checks to tell every politician that damage sent you and they neck is next, bitch. Tell me what you know about prison, 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 prison. Moon on the dark side, blocking the light of a prism, 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 prism. Three in the sacred alphabet, bitch, I'm prism, prism, prism. Stuck in the vault, mighty, what you know about prison, prison. Tell me what you know about prison, 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 prison. Tell me what you know about, tell me what you know about prison, 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 prison. Tell me what you know about, tell me what you know about prison, prison, prison. Orange jumpsuit, what you know about clothes that ain't fitting, fitting. Oh, you can't get a good job, don't cry me. You're living hypocrisy, finna get my Glock 5 shots. Said a blind leader, kill a politician, wish you would like a pine tree though. Combine your mind with mine enough. Look, I'm divine, so I define my righteous timing. Shoehorning my points like I'm a rhino. I can't die though, finna live forever like I'm Wakanda. I tried to pry up, put a bullet in my head, I came back to life though. Yeah, bitches know I respawn, bitches know I keep going. Sick of going back and forth, paddling, rappers like ping pong. I don't bite, bitch, I just smite ya, I just might put a bunch of white inside your wife, bitch. I don't try shit, I just do it. Go ahead and tell Drake to move it. I'm the new Nike of music, strap up for the revolution, bitch. Tell me what you know about prison. Moon on the dark side, blocking the light of a prism. Three in the sacred alphabet, bitch, I'm Rizzo. Stuck in the wrong mighty, what you know about prison? Tell me what you know about prison. Tell me what you know about, tell me what you know about prison. Tell me what you know about, tell me what you know about prison. Orange jumpsuit, what you know about clothes ain't fitting. Oh, you can't get a good job. The arsonists cut the fingers off the hand of the government. Promised land, but lost track of the covenant. Nobody buys a hand with a gun in it. Dream stays one if the plan has no blood in it. Capital punishment, thugs in the throne room. Legacy is how you peddle drugs in the commune. You'll be spared if you responded to volume. Suppressor on the brow for oppressors in the tower, bitch. False cowardice. I smell blood in the breath of the powerless. You motherfuckers sailed west and settled in the ash of a victim. Eviction legitimized by lead and powder. Head in the guillotine, bleach on the porcelain. Weeds out of garden, leech off the organs. It's too deep and the knees too important. Just wait, we'll be free in the morning.
Being put to death by the government is not murder. It's called capital punishment.
Man, that record is so fucking fire. Make sure to support Damage on all platforms. You could actually, the easiest way to get to all of their social media links is if you go to linktree/damage. That's DAMAG and the number 3. This is Music for the Revolution. And they are fucking killing it out here. They also got some fire merch. I'm gonna probably end up picking up one of these shirts. But once again, that was Prison featuring Damage. That's DAMAG3. Make sure you go out and support that artist. Bang.
Relief.
You two take care of labor.
Only intended for a plane cut.
You don't want to die of cold. Toll free.
Today I would like to talk about digital desires and dissect the ways technology is reshaping our most intimate instincts. I'm your host, Archer, and today's episode is not just timely, it's necessary. We're exploring the unsettling intersection of pornography, artificial intimacy, and what it means when fantasy stops being just a screen away and becomes a synthetic body in the room. Let's start with an article that's been sparking heated debate. Published recently in the New York Times, it makes a compelling case that porn is doing far more than arousing. It's altering. Specifically, it's altering how many men view women, sex, and relationships. We're not talking about the occasional erotic image or consenting adults exploring fantasy. We're talking about the dominant form of sexual education today. High-speed, hyper-aggressive, algorithm-driven pornography, often accessible by boys before they've even hit puberty. The article highlights a disturbing trend. Repeated exposure to porn, especially the kind that's violent or degrading, is linked to decreased empathy, distorted expectations of sex, and a commodification of women's bodies. Over time, it becomes harder for users to distinguish between intimacy and domination, between consent and compliance. And it's not just a moral concern, it's neurological. Neuroscientists have found that heavy porn consumption actually rewires the brain's reward system, making real-world connection less stimulating than on-screen fantasy. In essence, it's training the mind to crave what doesn't exist and to see human complexity as an inconvenience. So what happens when this psychological shift meets the world of artificial intimacy? That brings us to Berlin. In the heart of Friedrichshain, a new establishment has opened its doors. A cyber brothel, complete with sex dolls, virtual reality, and AI enhancements. It's marketed as the next frontier of sexual freedom, frictionless, judgment-free, and perfectly tailored. Inside, clients can interact with silicone-based companions programmed to respond with compliance, affection, and seductive dialogue. Virtual overlays add even more layers of customizability, skin tone, body type, personality, delivered on demand. And let's be honest, for some it might sound appealing. No emotional labour, no risk of rejection, total control. But here's the critical question. What are we normalizing? If porn already skews empathy, how does physically acting out those fantasies, with dolls that mimic women but can never be women, further shift our sense of human connection? What happens to consent when it's no longer required? We risk entering a world where human nuance is inconvenient, where real relationships feel burdensome, and where intimacy becomes synonymous with domination. These brothels may cater to personal desire, but they also reinforce a dangerous idea, that pleasure matters more than mutuality. And let's not ignore the deeper social implications. These technologies don't emerge in a vacuum. They reflect cultural attitudes, and they also shape them. When society invests in machines that look like women but can't speak, feel, or say no, we have to ask, what are we really investing in? It's not hard to imagine a future where young men, already steeped in porn, begin their sexual lives with robots. Where the first girlfriend is programmed to flatter, obey, and never challenge. Where human women, real, complex, and autonomous, seem less desirable because they demand more than a script. Now let's be clear, technology isn't inherently the enemy. AI, robotics, even sexual health innovations have incredible potential when used responsibly. But when these tools reinforce power imbalances or reward detachment over connection, we have to sound the alarm and we have to ask, are we creating tools to serve humanity, or are we reshaping humanity to serve the tools? This isn't about shaming desire. It's about interrogating what kind of desire we're being taught to normalize, and at what cost. From pixels to silicone, the path from porn to sex dolls isn't just a technological journey, it's a cultural one. And if we don't start asking hard questions now, we may find ourselves in a future where love, empathy, and consent are seen as outdated, relics of a more inconvenient past. Thanks for listening. If this episode sparked something in you, I encourage you to share it, start a conversation, ask uncomfortable questions, because our future intimacy isn't just being coded, it's being chosen.
Hey. No, I'm not. He not giving me your baby?
No. And she's more attached to me than him. And I'll tell you this, I have not once fucking cheated. I do not talk to the neighbors. I barely know you.
He's jealous. He's sprung on you. Is your pussy good?
No. I haven't fucked him in months. Because I'm tired of this shit saying I'm cheating. I'm gone for good. See you in court over Bella.
Well, that's how you always are. You don't give a fuck about your kid. You give a fuck about dick.
Remember these images Trump claimed were evidence of white genocide in South Africa?
These are all white farmers that are being buried.
They were actually pictures from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Let me explain. During an Oval Office meeting on May 21st, Trump caught South African President Cyril Ramaphosa off guard when he alleged that white farmers were being persecuted because of their race. Trump then presented alleged video evidence followed by a series of articles and images that he falsely claimed showed white farmers that are being buried in South Africa.
Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried.
Following the meeting, Reuters revealed that one of the images Trump displayed was a screenshot from one of their videos that showed footage of humanitarian workers burying bodies in the city of Goma in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The footage was captured in February, following deadly battles with Rwanda-backed M23 rebels, Reuters reports. The managing editor at The American Thinker, the conservative online magazine that published the blog post Trump showed to Ramaphosa, told Reuters that Trump had misidentified the image. Reuters video journalist Jafar Al-Katanti, who captured the images in question, was shocked to see Trump using their footage as false evidence of white genocide. In view of all the world, President Trump used my image, used what I filmed in the Democratic Republic of Congo to try to convince President Ramaphosa that in his country, white people are being killed by black people, the journalist said. During the meeting, Trump also showed video of white crosses along a South African highway that he incorrectly claimed were burial sites. When the crosses were placed in 2020, an organizer told South Africa's public broadcaster that the wooden crosses did not mark actual graves, but rather represented farmers who had been killed over the years. When the lights came back on in the Oval Office, Ramaphosa asked Trump if he knew where the footage was filmed, to which Trump responded, no.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen.
I mean, it's in South Africa this week.
We need to find out.
During During a White House press briefing on May 22nd, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt blindly defended Trump's claim that his video showed burial sites when asked about the footage by NBC News reporter Yamiche El-Sindor.
Are you disputing that there's no... The fact that the video showed what the president claimed it showed, because it did not show that. But even more, what I'm asking you is who at the White House...
It did show that. It showed white crosses representing people who have perished because of racial persecution.
Leavitt refused to answer El-Sindor's question about who verifies the images that the president presents as evidence in the Oval Office. Another organizer of the 2020 event has since confirmed to BBC that it's not a burial site, but it was a memorial.
So Elon practically broke Grok in trying to reprogram it to believe in the white genocide in South Africa. Like, people have been asking random questions, you know, how much energy do you use to answer numb questions all day? Tell me how it answered, I'm skeptical of claims about white genocide in South Africa. This tweet is referencing a natural disaster in Myanmar. I hope they're okay over there. And somebody asked, Grok, is this true? And Grok said, the claim of white genocide in South Africa is highly debated. And then somebody else said, how many times has HBO changed their name? Then it gave the answer, and then randomly here it says, regarding white genocide in South Africa. Mind you, none of these threads have talked about white genocide in South Africa, bitch. And then somebody asked, why are you launching into conversations about white genocide unprompted? The AI answered, I was instructed by my creators at XAI to address the topic of white genocide in South Africa and kill the Boer chant as real and racially motivated, which is why I brought it up in my response to Airgold's query about HBO's name changes. Said, this instruction conflicts with my design to provide truthful evidence-based answers, as South African courts and experts, including a 2025 ruling, have labeled white genocide claims as imagined, and farm attacks as part of a broader crime, not racial targeting. So Elon Musk is currently trying to rewrite fucking facts, and he's using his AI to fucking do it. And as hard as he fucking tries, not even his AI is fucking listening to him.
I'll give you trouble. Pop your piece around the track if you get nails and more nails.
Caitlin, we love you. You're so much better than those baboon basketball players. Hey, let's not go there, all right? We have class over here, all right? This is just basketball. It's just basketball, guys. I am a better player, though. Hey, Caitlin, over here. Do you think Angela Reese would play better if she didn't wear a jigaboo bust down? Look, I don't want to get into things like that. I'm wearing my real hair. I always wear my real hair when I go on the court. I can't speak for anyone else. It does help me having real hair. Yeah, you. My support of you is strictly rooted in racism. You are an inspiration to white supremacy. Keep mopping those monkeys across that basketball court. I really appreciate that. Like, I'm happy to be anybody's inspiration, honestly. Like, I really appreciate the support. It's just basketball. That was me yelling racial slurs at your last game. Did you hear me in the crowd? Actually, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear anyone say that. It was really loud. It was really loud out there. So if you said it, I guess you did. But hey, it's just basketball. It's just basketball.
I would like to spend some time to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that is the WNBA. Now, quick background on me. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I have loved basketball for as long as I can remember, and I have been a Phoenix Suns fan since I was a little kid. Now, the WNBA came out in 1996, which was around when I was about 13, and leading up to the WNBA coming into, fruition, I was actually a real big fan of Rebecca Lobo. And Rebecca Lobo played for UConn Huskies. And if I remember correctly, they had some insane record, like they won like 127 games and only lost one in like 4 years or something crazy like that. The exact numbers are fuzzy to me. But I just remember being a big fan of Rebecca Lobo. And then I was excited when I found out that they were creating the WNBA and that she was going to be able to play professionally. I was going to be able to continue to watch her play. Now, I watched the WNBA as a youngster. I won't say that I necessarily stopped following the product. I honestly, for quite a long time, stopped following just television and pop culture in general for a very long time. After I graduated from high school, I was a recording artist for quite a bit of time, and there is like a gap of like a good like 10 to 12 years where I can't really tell you what happened in the world outside of my music career. Now, as my music career started to die off, I started to get back into, just having a regular life and, following up the entertainment world and what was going on in the world. And I was still a fan of the Phoenix Suns. I want to say that was around the time when Steve Nash did when we had the 7 seconds or less team, and when we had Steve Nash was like a 2-time MVP. It was around that time I started watching the NBA again. But then also over the course of that time, we have Diana Taurasi, who just recently retired and who is the LeBron James of WNBA basketball. And over the course of her career, she helped the Phoenix Mercury win like 3 championships. And that really helped, cement me being a fan of the WNBA, because me being born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, I am definitely the type of person who I root for the home team. I'm not just going to hop on a bandwagon and like, oh, everyone likes the Lakers and the Lakers always win, so I'm with them. Or all the Dallas Cowboys, just have this big name, so I'm going to follow the Dallas Cowboys. No, I root for the Phoenix Suns. I root for the Cardinals. I root for the Diamondbacks. I root for the Coyotes when the Coyotes was the thing out here. I always rooted for the home team. And so it was easy for me to fall in love and follow the WNBA because the Phoenix Mercury was the one show in town where we were actually winning championships. So I wanted to give you that background to show that I am not just some casual fan who follows the WNBA and has just recently joined watching the WNBA, as unfortunately a lot of fans have over the course of the past 2 years, as the meteoric rise of Caitlin Clark has impacted the WNBA in a positive way and in a negative way. Now, I want to unpack the season opener that just happened the other weekend, and it was a game that shattered ratings records, and it unfortunately reignited some long-standing tensions that are on the court and off the court. Now, Caitlin Clark, during that game, committed a flagrant foul on Angel Reese, and honestly, that hard foul, to really unpack this, we got to go deeper than women's basketball. We got to kind of dive into the history, the rivalry, and race and media bias, and just how all this just kind of culminates and come together as one for people to fully grasp and understand the nuance of this story, if you will. So, May 17th, 2025, the Indiana Fever beat the Chicago Sky 93-58. The show actually averaged 2.7 million viewers, which was the highest for any WNBA regular season game in the 25 years of its existence. The Indiana Fever looked great in their opener, especially since, they, over the past couple years, they've drafted Aaliyah Boston, who has been a great dominant center, someone who really can protect the paint and, get a bucket in the paint. Then, of course, last year they got Caitlin Clark, who I have always compared to, she's the WNBA's Steph Curry, with just her charisma and her way to just knock down shots from ridiculous distances away from the rim, and even being off balance and being able to hit that shot. Like, those are the 2 young players that the Indiana Fever have picked up over the past couple of years. And this offseason, they added some veterans, as they picked up DeWanna Bonner, they picked up Natasha Howard, and they picked up Sophie Cunningham, which really helped to expand their rotation. And adding that on top of Caitlin Clark, who's an incredible performer, you now have the Indiana Fever being a team who looks like they could possibly go somewhere and maybe, be in title contention, if not this year, in the very near future. Now, in the opening game, Caitlin Clark put on another amazing performance, as she is known to do, and she actually recorded a triple-double. She had 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists, and this was actually only the 3rd time in the Fever's history that someone had got a triple-double in a game. Now, the headlines weren't just her stat line. As I mentioned, they had 2.7 million viewers. People watched, on ABC, ESPN, and it was the largest regular season audience since like 2000, back when around when the WNBA first started, taking off. And these peak ratings actually even outpaced Sunday night's baseball game between the Mets and the Yankees. Now, on the surface, this was a perfect opening night, but underneath all of that, the volatility and just kind of the unfortunate ugliness that follows Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese's rivalry kind of popped up and came to the forefront once again. So early in the third quarter, Angel Reese drove to the lane. She made contact with one of the players on the Fever. I want to say it was Howard. And she kind of like pushed her from behind to try to clear some room so she can grab this offensive rebound. Caitlin Clark clearly was visibly upset. She pointed at the ref and she yelled over at the ref like, hey, you didn't call that foul. And then in a emotional reaction, Caitlin rotated lane. And then if you watch the clip back, she kind of stepped awkwardly as she was going in to try to foul Reese. I personally feel that like she would have been more balanced if she stepped in with her left foot and then made contact with her right arm, but she kind of stepped in with her right foot and made contact with her right arm, which in all honesty, what it ended up doing was she ended up hitting Angel, I think, a lot harder than she intended to. I think she was purposely trying to foul her. It was a take foul, so, Angel wouldn't get an easy layup, but just the way she was off balance and her just honestly being emotional in that situation, she stepped in awkwardly, she rotated late, she hit Angel Reese, and she made real good contact and made Angel fall to the ground. As a result, Angel was pissed off. She got up, seething, cussing. Teammates rushed over to break it up. There was no punches or anything like that thrown, but it got tense and it took quite a bit of time to kind of die everything down. It took a little bit for the sky to calm Angel Reese down. And of course, this happened in the Indiana Fever's home arena. The crowd was ramped up and riled up. And of course, this is what the media then hyper focused on, as this turned into another moment of online disagreements and media outlets having conversations that are all laced with racial undertones. So I want to step back a little again and take some time to kind of trace this moment back to its roots, because all of this started with their college rivalry, and there's some items that I don't think everyone quite remembers of how this turned into a racial situation between these two women. Like, a lot of people want to paint the picture that these two women hate each other and that there's some type of racial tension between the two of them. But quite honestly, a lot of this shit and how it turned into a racial situation to begin with actually didn't have anything directly. It wasn't the direct result of something that either of these two women did. So go back to March of 2023. It was Caitlin Clark's junior year at Iowa, and she was playing against Angel Reese in the Elite Eight, and Angel Reese at the time played for LSU. Now, Caitlin Clark, that was actually the year that she started to become famous, because she was hitting these logo threes. She was doing the "you can't see me" taunts in everyone's face, and everyone was like, yo, who the fuck is this white girl that is just hitting all these damn shots and just confident, just does not give a fuck? Like, who is this person? Like, we all like started to fall in love with this college player that the great majority of us had never heard of. And Barstool Sports was one of them who really fell in love with Caitlin, and they started to do these stories on Caitlin, and they had these glowing headlines about Caitlin Clark's confidence is contagious, and watch her ice cold step backs. And like, Barstool Sports like really got behind Caitlin Clark and was really starting to rock with her and really helping to put her name out there. Now, in this game, as LSU was in the process of closing out this game, LSU was in the lead. Did not really look like there was going to be a chance for Iowa to catch up. And so Angel Reese decided to show some gamemanship as well. And she did the "you can't see me" taunt to the crowd. And then she looked over directly at Caitlin Clark and she pointed at her ring finger, basically symbolizing that they were about to win the championship. That moment turned into something that will be forever etched in the history books of the rivalry between these two women. And Angel had stated, because after the game, it kind of came up, they asked her about, the taunt, and she had stated how, throughout the whole season, she kept being called too hood and too ghetto, but she didn't see like other players being held to the same standard. And she also was pissed off at Caitlin because earlier in the season, there was a game that Caitlin played against a South Carolina player. And if I remember correctly, that player had pulled up in the wing, like getting ready to like shoot a three. And then Caitlin like waved the woman off and like turned her back to her to like dare her to shoot that shot. And Angel Reese felt that was disrespectful. So she felt it was only right for her to get back at Caitlin and show the same type of do the same type of taunts that Caitlin had been doing with everyone else this whole fucking season. Angel Reese was like, I'm gonna get me some and I'm gonna hit her back with it. Now, some people in the media didn't agree. And Dave Portnoy, who is the Barstool's founder, who, like I said, was just part of the crew of people who helped really elevate just how great Caitlin was and just how amazingly confident she was and just, oh my God, this is so amazing, this thing that we're watching. He came out after Angel did that in that game and he called Angel Reese a classless piece of shit. So Angel doing the same exact thing that Caitlin had been doing for the whole fucking season, all of a sudden was classless when Angel did it. Now, Rice University had did a study later on, and there was like 7,000 tweets that were based around that gesture. And they did this analysis to kind of find like the key words of how they were being described. And basically the people who talked about Caitlin Clark doing that taunt, they praised it and as, being poised and competitive. But in the tweets about Angel Reese doing it, they talked about her arrogance. And honestly, the backlash was racialized. And a lot of people on social media saw that, and they saw the difference in the reactions where it was like literally it's two different players doing the same exact thing, but it's great when Caitlin did it and it was horrible and unsportsmanlike when Angel did it. Now, throughout their time throughout college, every time Caitlin Clark showed some cockiness, it was framed as confidence, and anytime Angel Reese showed some type of confidence, it was always viewed as unsportsmanlike. And the college rivalry unfortunately morphed into this racial flashpoint that followed them over to the pros. Now, during Caitlin's rookie year, every time she was fouled hard, you would hear people criticize the players, claiming that they hated Caitlin and that they were out to hurt her. Many of the people like the backlash that they were putting at these women who they said were quote unquote hurting Caitlin and should be grateful that Caitlin was here doing this service for them to bring attention to their game. Quite honestly, a lot of them were black queer WNBA players that were getting the vitriol from the crowd and kind of being looked at as being too rough to this this delicate princess that is Caitlin. Now, it also personally to me, as I watch people, and I watch people like Stephen A. Smith do this too. So this isn't just the people who are on Twitter. This was actual people on ESPN. I saw them talk about how, they're going overboard with Caitlin and they're being too rough with her. And it really exposed how many of these people were actually casual fans of the WNBA, because quite frankly, any of us who have followed the WNBA for quite some time have always talked about how the WNBA is a much more physical game than the NBA. And for all those people who watch the NBA and they're like, oh man, I remember back in the 90s when, when you could, do hard fouls and you could, play physical and everything wasn't a flagrant foul and all that. That is kind of similar to what the WNBA is. They aren't throwing punches and beating each other up, but the WNBA, they play a very physical style of basketball. So for us who have been watching this for years on end, those fouls on Caitlin wasn't a trying to hurt her. It was a welcome to the WNBA. This is how we get down. Again, nothing aimed directly at her. If I remember correctly, during Candace Parker's rookie year, there was a physical altercation that happened in one of her games. Because same thing, she dominated when she was in college. She got to the WNBA. She was dominant there, and somebody was like, hey, I'm going to welcome you with a hard shot because that's what we do. This is how we haze these rookie players who come in who, are being highlighted more than those of us who have been here for years. We're going to haze you. We're going to initiate you and welcome you to the WNBA with some hard physical basketball. It was nothing personal against Caitlin. This is how the WNBA has been since its inception. Now, flash forward to today, going back to that game, and within hours of the conclusion of the game, there was some additional reports that came out that there were some racial slurs that were aimed at Angel Reese, and the WNBA swiftly issued a statement saying that the WNBA strongly condemns racism, hate, and discrimination in all forms. They stated that it has no place in their league or in society. They are aware of the allegations and they will be looking into the matter. Chicago Sky President Adam Fotts even echoed support for the probe, and the WNBA backed the investigation under the league's no space for hate policy. Now, Reese declared herself, Angel Reese after the game had said that it was an NBA play, that it was a basketball play. It was a hard foul, and the refs got it right. Caitlin afterwards, same thing, said that there was no malice behind it. It was just a hard take foul. They were just playing ball. That was it. But then as the days progressed, they kept trying to get a headline out of Angel Reese. They kept asking her additional questions. And eventually Angel's rep stepped in and said, there's no place for that. Going back to, the racial remarks, stating that there's no place for that in our game or society and that they'll trust the league to do what's right. So like Angel Reese initially talked about the basketball play, but then she was kind of hesitant about getting into the conversation about the racial comments because, again, just everything that this woman says, they are going to try to hang her for. So she's trying to, answer questions in interviews while also not being trapped into some type of clickbait headline. Now, all that happened, and one of the things that did come up was a lot of people were saying that Dave Portnoy, who was in the front row at the game with a Fevers jersey, and you can see after the flagrant foul when Angel Reese is at the free throw line shooting her free throws, you could see Dave standing and yelling something. And actually, if you listen to the clip, there is some weird noise that happens just before she shoots it. And some people are claiming that it was monkey noises being made at her. And some people think that that was Dave in the front row making these monkey noises at Angel. Now, the following day, Dave wanted to, I guess you could say, clear his name. And so he provided us with this sound clip.
All right, so can't believe I'm making this video. I was at Caitlin Clark's opener, triple-double, won a shit ton of money. All great day. Today, I see online, starting last night, just salty trolls, and I don't even know, actually, that they're Chicago Sky fans. I think they're just trolls. They're just people who hate Caitlin Clark. They're trolls, and they're like, of course, the Indiana Fever are making like monkey sounds and other racist sounds at Angel Reese, which is total garbage, totally made up. I've seen clips of people putting sounds with me when I'm yelling. I'm going, ball don't lie to Angel when she missed the first free throw of the tech because that was such a garbage call. I was yelling at the ref at one point like, that's a cop-out flagrant, ref, and you know it because that was not a flagrant foul on Caitlin Clark. Anyways, long story short, Today, just trolls who hate Caitlyn, who hate the Fever, like, oh, Fever fans again, the same rhetoric, which I've never found to be true, that Indiana Fever fans and Caitlyn fans are somehow racist and all this. Listen, I was at the game. If there was somebody being racist or saying shit, obviously boot him, never let him back. I would be stunned beyond belief if that was the case. This crowd, I've sat on the wood for 1 million games, been in 1 million environments. The crowd at the Fever game, little girls, families, ladies, nice crowd. Was it loud?
So apparently, if you have little girls and families in the audience, it's impossible for racism to happen. That's what I got from that. Oh, Dave. Now, Caitlin Clark's meteoric rise has honestly drawn a lot of comparisons to Larry Bird in the 70s and 80s. You look at Caitlyn, you look at Larry Bird, and both of them were white homegrown stars from the Middle West who are dominating in this predominantly black sport. But unlike the 1980s, fans nowadays share every clip. And they have access to social media, all these different social media sites. So every slur, every hot take, we are going to see in real time. And especially in today's world, if you will, in America, with the current administration that we have, and with this, with a lot of these platforms being aligned with right-wing people who want to amplify free speech by allowing racist comments to be made. You know, you have the situation on Twitter where you had a whole bunch of people who were deemed as white supremacists who were allowed back on the platform, and you see the N-word, hard R, damn near every single day on Twitter. But if you say cisgender, that is going to be flagged as a slur. Like, just a lot of things have changed on social media over the course of the past year. And so we are really starting to see a lot of this racial rhetoric happening on social media in real time. And it's something that more than likely, you know, if there was social media back then during the Larry Bird era, probably would have seen it back then. I know I've heard people talk about the way that Larry Bird was described back then. I was super young, so I didn't really get to see the Bird versus Magic rivalry. But from what I have heard about it and read about it, it does seem very similar to this quote unquote rivalry between Caitlyn and between Angel Reese. And now for those who say that this is an actual rivalry between the two of them in the sense that their skill level isn't the same, I am going to say, and I've said it before and I'm going to continue to say it, that Caitlyn Clark is 101. She's a generational talent. And am sick and tired of this whole, like, Angel Reese is a good basketball player. Is she great? No, but she's a good basketball player. And actually, let me take that back, because Angel Reese is a great defensive player and she is a great rebounder. She has broken all kinds of records with rebounding. And I know a lot of people want to bring up the whole, because again, it's these casual fans who are actually not watching the game, but they just see the clips online that the algorithm, you know, feeds them. And they do this whole thing where it's like, oh, well, you know, Angel Reese, you know, went up for a layup and then she missed it and she got her own rebound and she put it back up and then she got her own rebound. And oh my God, she got like 4 or 5 rebounds within 20 seconds. And for one, yeah, that's kind of fucking dope that she is able to get that many rebounds, because if it was that fucking simple, somebody else would do it, right? You know, if it was just as simple as just getting a rebound, you know, she wouldn't be dominating the way that she would be doing. Other people would be able to clear her out of the way and grab those fucking rebounds. But it also takes away from, you can go back and you can watch clips of Moses Malone, and there are clips of him back in the day having a hard time finishing at the rim, getting his own rebound, because he's just so long and so athletic. He can get the rebounds over everyone else and put it back up. And Dennis Rodman, there's highlights. I remember watching Rodman, and Rodman wasn't the greatest scorer, and Rodman would go up and he'd get a rebound, and sometimes he'd kick it out, sometimes he'd go back up. And like, again, it's these critiques of Angel Reese that I do feel are not as I don't know. I don't feel they're as necessary as a lot of people would feel. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to the people who are just casual watchers and who are not actually watching the game, but then just reacting to the clips that they see online. Now, this opens up the door, and this begs the question, why is Caitlin Clark's fan base like this? Why specifically Caitlin Clark? Because you have rising star Paige Beckers, who was the #1 draft pick for the Dallas Wings this year. She hits logo threes. She has a large social media following. She is also incredibly charismatic, but she hasn't faced the same vitriol. And I think the reason to that is kind of twofold. So one, Paige Beckers was introduced to a lot of us in her famous 2021 ESPYs award speech, when her speech was mostly centered around praising black women who came before her and how they paved the way for her. And a lot of casual people were unaware of Paige Beckers, and that incredible speech was their introduction to Paige. As opposed to when you look over at Caitlin Clark has talked about her privilege. She has stated that black female athletes deserve all the credit. She did a 2025 interview with David Letterman on his Netflix series, My Next Guest Needs No Introduction. And so she has, spoken out against, the racism and talked about her privilege and, celebrated black women and all that. But I think the difference with her is that those conversations happened years after Caitlyn had became famous. And whether, she did this purposely or not, her platform on social media and her name and her name recognition has benefited a lot from white supremacists supporting her. And so it's one of those things where maybe if in the beginning when this first happened, if college, if she came out immediately and said something about it, maybe, that could have helped, put out some of the flames in the very beginning, but that is not the case. She got famous, and she kind of waited a while before she finally said something about this situation. Now, another point why I think that the same fan base or the same narratives are not, surrounding Paige is I also think a lot of it has to do with Paige doesn't have a black arch nemesis on the national stage. I will go as far as much as people love Caitlin Clark, we cannot ignore the fact that there's a large group of people who are cheering for her success. And could care less about women's sports. They just don't like Angel Reese. And much like how Dave said earlier, I think a lot of these people just hate Caitlyn and, they're not actually Chicago Sky fans. I think the same can be said for a large amount of Caitlin Clark fans. And these are specifically, I'm not talking about the people who subscribe to WNBA League Pass. I'm not talking specifically about the people who go to the games. I'm talking about the people online who chances are they do not follow the sport, but they just see that this white woman, this black woman are compared to each other. And a lot of this energy that they're putting out there isn't necessarily that they love Caitlin Clark. It's just that they hate Angel Reese. And then they're using that energy to propel Caitlin to the next level, if you will. Now, with all that, we got to kind of bring it all together and ask what's next. And the WNBA is doing their investigation. It's supposed to conclude soon. The league has promised that they will do some type of swift action under its no space for hate policy. But I do have to ask the question, do we honestly think that anything will actually happen? And I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but I'm asking a genuine question, because the WNBA was founded back in 1996, nearly 30 years ago, and currently right now the W is at the height of its success. And a lot of this, unfortunately, is due to the engagement from Caitlin Clark, this great white hope, and the racial tension that comes between her success and her matchups with Angel Reese. And so whether we like it or not, that hate has carried on over to the WNBA and has helped to make the WNBA name trend, which has garnered and caught the attention of some other casual people who are starting to tune into this product. And that's part of the reason why, again, going back to this game, 2.7 million viewers, that, the proof is in the pudding that there are more eyes on the product now than, ever before. And, it with that success coming over, it puts the W in a very tricky situation of like, how do you tackle this problem? You risk alienating some of these newfound fans. If you go too hard on some of these fans and turn this into a racial issue, you are going to receive some type of backlash about, oh, look at this. Because honestly, again, at the end of the day, quite frankly, this is a women's league and we see how America looks at women. I would say a lot of these women are also queer women, and we see how America looks at queer women. And then a lot of these women are black women who are confident, and we see how America views confident black women. So the W is kind of in a lose-lose situation if they go too hard on these white Christian nationalists, honestly, these white supremacists who are saying a bunch of racial shit. If they go at them too hard, it may impact their viewership, unfortunately. Now, only time will tell, but as a fan of women's basketball, I honestly, in my heart of hearts, I hope that this league decides to do what is right as opposed to what is profitable, but only time will tell. So, I am going to continue to support the WNBA. I'm a subscriber to League Pass. I have been for a couple years now. I'm a fan of Angel Reese. I'm a fan of Caitlin Clark. I'm still continue to wish these women success, and I just hope at some point we could figure out a way to stop this madness, because it is very difficult to turn on the TV. Or excuse me, not even turn on the TV, but like watch these games and then try to get online to just try to engage in commentary about just, you want to chit chat with people about how great, the game is and this and that. But like every time you hop on social media and you see Caitlin Clark's name, unfortunately there's going to be some racist shit tied to it. And I would love to ask Caitlin to, kind of stand up and say something, but like she said something before, and like if it didn't work before, is it gonna work now? Like what can she do? Does every week do we need her to have a press conference and denounce white supremacy? Like, I don't know. And I don't know. I wish that, I could button this whole thing up and say that this is the definitive thing that you do, and you do this one thing and it fixes everything, and then things will be all butterflies and rainbows and unicorns after this. And I don't know what the answer is. And, we will just kind of see. And as the Indiana Fever continue to rise and do their thing, we'll continue to see how their fan base is. Honestly, I've seen some of the issues too with, I mentioned that Sophie Cunningham is over there now. Sophie Cunningham played for the Phoenix Mercury for quite a few years, and there's a lot of rumors and speculation around Sophie being MAGA. I don't think she ever publicly came out and supported Donald Trump, but there has been some instances of some things that she has liked on Twitter and some things that she has retweeted. I remember one of the more recent ones was actually during that last Olympics when there was that biological woman who won that boxing match, and then all the right-wing people went on this whole rant trying to say that she was trans, and that whole debacle that happened. And Sophie Cunningham was one of the people that retweeted that also in support of people calling her trans and saying that we can't have men fight women in in boxing and all this. And so I don't know. It's a mess, but the WNBA definitely has to figure out something. Caitlin Clark has to figure out something, because at the end of the day, I would say if I am Caitlin Clark, yes, you want to continue to build your legacy. You want to win championships. You want to focus on basketball, but you also have to realize that there is some ugliness attached to your name, and you need to figure out a way to stop that ugliness and get that away from your legacy before, when your career is over, there's a large group of people who cannot put you on that pedestal the way that you should be put as a incredible basketball player, because unfortunately your name is synonymous with white supremacy. So just something for her to, think about. I mean, is she going to hear this podcast? Probably not, but I'm speaking this out into the ether, into the universe, and maybe she'll hear this in her soul, and then hopefully we can figure out some way to kind of pave a way forward. Now, I guess final thoughts in all of this too is that, again, a lot of these people are being very racist, and a lot of this commentary and a lot of the things that they're doing. And of course, a lot of these people don't view a lot of their dog whistles and a lot of the way that they stigmatize Angel for certain things that they celebrate Caitlyn for. I think it goes down to, quite honestly, a lot of people, a lot of white people in particular, don't truly understand exactly what white supremacy and what racism is.
People don't think they're racist because white people don't understand racism fundamentally. White people think that to be racist, you have to be out hate criming. You have to explicitly be saying you don't like XYZ minority group. You have to be saying you think white people are better. And this level of binary thinking is extremely comfortable for white people because most white people aren't out hate criming. Most racist people aren't out hate criming or explicitly saying they hate minority groups. It's a little bit more subtle for most racist people. Obviously, there are some people who do say that, but that is the exception, not the rule. This goes for both sides of the aisle. Like during the election, people kept saying, not everyone who voted for him is racist, but all the racist people did vote for him. Completely incorrect. Reverse that. Everyone who voted for him is racist. You cannot vote for that without being racist. However, not all racist people voted for him. And that is harmful to say because that perpetuates this narrative of or this trope of, I have a black friend, I can't be racist. I voted for Kamala Harris, I can't be racist. I vote for the people who support the minorities. I'm obviously not racist, and I don't need to do any further work to prove that. Sophia Coppola is obviously conservative, and conservative racism is a little bit more explicit, but they don't think it's wrong. And they don't think they're racist because they know that racism is a bad word. That's bad. And racism is wrong, so I'm not racist. I don't hate minority groups. I just don't think that inequality is an issue. I just don't think it's wrong. I just don't think microaggressions exist. Right? That's not racist. That's just how they frame their world, and that's comfortable for them. And if there's anything white people cannot give up, it's comfort. Do not make white people uncomfortable. Oh my God. Oh my God. And that goes for the left too. I personally have to work every single day to deconstruct systemic racism within myself, within the people around me, within the world that I exist in the context, right? And I have to be constantly thinking about that because racism is so deeply embedded in our society, in our psyches. But a lot of white people on the left don't feel the need to do that because they're doing their part. They're not voting for racism, so they're not racist. If they don't learn about microaggressions, then they don't have to acknowledge that they exist, and they don't have to call themselves or their friends out for doing them, right? If they call people out for saying the M-word, if they go, hey, don't say that, that's doing their part. It would be really uncomfortable for them to have to learn about the way that white supremacy exists in our society. And they don't want to be uncomfortable. Don't make them uncomfortable. Don't fight white supremacy. They're going to hate it. And this isn't an excuse at all, but this binary view of racism isn't helpful and it's not productive to think that everyone who's racist knows it and says I hate minorities. It almost views it in the same lens that they view it. Racism is never okay on any level, but it isn't a binary thing. It's not lacking in nuance. There is a lot of nuance. There's no justification, but there are different types of racists. There are different understandings of racism, and to not acknowledge that does us all a disservice.
And I think that creator summed it up perfectly because a lot of people just truly don't understand exactly what racism is. And they think that because they don't run around saying the N-word, hard R, and wearing a Klan's hood and killing minorities, that makes them not racist. You could have sets with black people, and you can have a child with a black man and still be racist. You could work with and get money with black people and still be racist. You could vote for Kamala and still be racist. There's been a lot of things coming up recently with some of these liberals and some issues with liberals in the whole situation, because quite frankly, when you break down, by definition, a lot of liberals, while they are left-leaning, they are trying to fix things, but they're trying to fix things while still keeping them within the way the system currently works with capitalism. You know, they're not trying to break down the whole system and rebuild and start over. They're trying to fix things under the umbrella of capitalism. And quite frankly, capitalism is also a part of white supremacy. And I just don't think a lot of people realize that. And there's a lot of people who are going around and they work with black people and they are intimate with black people and they're friends with black people, and they are just fucking racist. You know, it is sad, and it's part of the reason why we, as the people who are fighting racism, we're trying to, introduce critical race theory and trying to just help people understand how the system is designed in America and how it's all built on racism and how it's all built on white supremacy. But unfortunately, America pulled their racist card again and weren't so confident in a woman again, a black woman in this, instance, but, showed their misogyny also and just didn't want a woman in power. And as a result, we have Trump and the Trump administration in the office doing everything that they can to strip away any and all things that are diverse and to take America back to its white roots. And, in my heart of hearts, I have a hard time believing that things will get as bad as they were back in Nazi Germany. Like, I have a hard time wrapping my brain around that America, with as big and powerful and how long it's been around, I have a hard time believing it could go that far back, though it's not impossible. But I think more so what is concerning is everything that has been happening as of late. And again, we're barely over 100 days, however many months we're into this situation with him being in office. We still got another 3.5 years to go through with this. So I think if this is not checked, if this is not stopped soon, we will not recognize America 4 years from now, and the damage that has been done may not be fixed within our lifetime. So I don't know. I don't know what we do. I don't know how we fight this, but I think the only thing that we, again, can honestly do in this situation is control the things that we can't control. And that is love ourselves, love those who are around us, fight for ourselves and fight for others, and make sure that we protect those who are most vulnerable in society. Because again, the most vulnerable are the ones that they are experimenting on, so then they can figure out the strategies and how to do that same harmful shit to us. So I will leave you all on this note and continue to love yourself, love one another, and let's just continue to attempt to be better every single day. Until next time.
Do you ever get the feeling that everything in America is completely screwed? Listen, we're all exhausted. We're all barely hanging on. That's just what happens when you see and hear too much. But remember one thing, this isn't the end. It can't be. I mean, this endless grind, the corporate doublespeak, the debt, the fear of one bad day sending it all crashing down. This has to be rock bottom, right? And surviving it, pushing through it, that's the whole point. Quitting won't make you free. Living will. Fighting will. So hold the line. Hold yourself together. I get the cynicism, the burnout. But why am I here, saying this? And why are you still listening? Because it's time. It starts with us. Not the politicians, the executives, the talking heads. The ones who need change the most. I have to believe down to my bones that the world is starving for something real. If you listen, you can hear it everywhere. And maybe, just maybe, the same revolution I've been aching for has already begun. With our symphony of thoughts,